Cash flow is everything to small business. And I think one of the big mistakes that we make as small business owners and sort of as society as a whole is we moralize money. So we feel like if we owe somebody money, that makes us a bad person, a bad business owner. We're embarrassed to say that our new business is going through a tough time or that an established business is in its off season. But the key to success as far as vendor management goes when it comes to cash flow is talk to your vendors. Be honest with your vendors. Give your vendors an idea of where you're at and communicate about them. If you owe your vendors money and you need product from them, let them know when and where they can expect their money to come from. At the end of the day, I think a lot of times people don't want their vendors in their business, but your vendors are to some degree dependent on your sales. So ultimately, if you are willing to let your vendor have some insight into what it is that's complicating things for you, then really you give your vendor an opportunity to work with you. And if your vendor can't make it work, hopefully they'll be honest with you and tell you why they can't make it work, and you can be honest with them as to why you need to find a vendor that can make that work. The best example I can give you is I have a food vendor that does an amazing job, delivers, always finds things that I need for me, and usually can do a pretty decent job on price. Obviously, when you're in the food business and you're having food delivered to you, you can't expect to pay the same price as you would at sort of a cash and carry place. But a lot of times if you find a good vendor who's willing to work with you, they can get somewhat competitive. So I have this great vendor and they do an amazing job by me. The only problem is that, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of food purveyors just don't extend very long terms anymore. And that's fine, except that when you're going to cash and carry spots, your employees or yourself are swiping company credit cards, and a credit card is on a 30-day cycle. So essentially you instantly walk into 30-day terms when you can use a credit card. If your vendor won't take a credit card or charges a fee for you to use that credit card, that obviously factors in to not just the price, but also into your cash flow. So if you're selling food today that you're gonna pay for next week, that's a very different cash flow situation than when you're selling food today that you're gonna pay for next month. It also really affects like how you can balance your books, because if you've got 30 days, you're essentially always on like a closing your month out and knowing where you're at financially situation. So I talked to that vendor and ultimately opened up my books, showed them where my buying was, what I was buying through them versus what I was buying from other places that would take my credit card or who gave me longer terms. And ultimately we were able to work out a situation where they couldn't extend me longer terms, but they could take the credit card. Because at the end of the day, for them, they're doing, a certain amount of business and they're leveraged a certain way. And so for them to be on a 30-day cycle where they're getting their money 30 days later, it makes it hard for them to keep their lights on. So they need their money. But by using the credit card, they were able to take their money in real time while leaving me with 30 days of float on my cash flow. Float just meaning like I had 30 days to pay something. It's essentially turning that 30-day time period into an extension on how much cash you really have in your hand. If you have $5,000 and that's all you have and you're paying for things in real time, then you can only buy $5,000 worth of stuff. But if you can pay somebody 30 days later, then essentially you have $5,000 plus the sales you're going to bring in over those 30 days. Obviously there's profitability is a whole different story. And if you're constantly just floating money to break even, you're sort of in a tough spot. But a lot of times it's all about cash flow. In particular, if you're in a business that has sales cycles. So either you're busier on certain days of the week, or you're busier at certain times of the year, or certain times of the month, or you have clients that pay you on cycles. My business changed a lot when it went from being just restaurants where our sales cycle was real time, was instant. Our customers walk in, they place an order, they pay for it. As soon as they buy their food, we have the money essentially, right? At the end of the night, it batches out, we have our money the next morning. I now have large catering clients. Well, large catering clients, especially like universities, big corporate clients will pay, they have terms and they sort of dictate the terms. And that's really the ultimate lesson to learn, is just like they dictate their terms to me because I need their sales. A lot of your vendors depend on your sales. So not that you should go around feeling like you can dictate your terms to them, but you can certainly have the conversation and be honest with them. Hey, look, if you want my X amount of buying from you, I need you to help me figure out how to make that work with my business model. And it really just comes back to being honest and comfortable talking about your business. It's not You are not a loser or a failure if you need them to work with you a little bit. And most other businesses that are successful are having those conversations. They're not simply just doing so much better than you that they don't worry about it. It's more like they're having those conversations. They're dictating terms a little bit. They're finding somebody whose terms work within them. So cash flow is super important to a small business. And the biggest way to protect your cash flow is to have conversations with your vendors and not just assume that you have to pay them on the terms that they're telling you, as opposed to like trying to have a conversation with them and see if they'll work with you.